Hey, welcome to the VekTech Podcast, where we cover gaming news and PC hardware news like graphics card news. Today we're covering huge new leaks about the new NVIDIA graphics card series, and trust me, I have a lot to say about it, as it is somewhat of a frustrating leak in my opinion, but we'll get into that. We are also talking about a huge update for all future gaming releases with the huge Unreal 5.5 engine update. For those looking forward to the new Witcher 4 or those other huge released games, this is going to be huge news for you, so we'll get into that. And then we're going to be talking about AMD's new CPU and some general driver updates and news. If you want to stay in the loop with more important gaming news, hit that subscribe button for more. Otherwise, I'm Tommy from VekTech. Let's get into it. The biggest news here, as you see on screen, is this rumored NVIDIA RTX 50 specs. Oh my goodness, guys, this is very frustrating to look at, to be honest. If you're listening on the go, on our screen, we have a list of all the specs. I'll cover the important stuff. I'm not going to bore you guys to death, but unfortunately, this is just kind of a very disappointing leak. The leaker here on videocards.com is going to be Kopite7Kimi. He actually does have a reputable history of good leaks, but things have changed. I will say, I imagine NVIDIA will change some of this. I do think companies do purposely leak stuff out to the public to see their reaction to it, and honestly, the reaction is going to be pretty bad from me. Unfortunately, AMD has not been very competitive in the graphics card market for the past 2 years, but in my opinion, this is such a disappointing release considering it's been almost 2 years since the 40 series came out, and now we're moving to the 50 series, and this just does not look like a lift up at all. Unfortunately, it's the same mold with NVIDIA, where it seems their top-end card that's rumored to be almost $2,000 or more is going to be very top-heavy and very good compared to everything else that's going to suck. They got the RTX 5090 with 32 gigabytes of VRAM instead of the current 24, 21,000 CUDA cores instead of the current 16,000 or so. That'd be 30 to 40% faster on paper. How that correlates to games is a little more complicated, but that is a pretty sizable speed boost. That's really good. Unfortunately, for the rest of the cards here, it looks like they haven't been upgraded at all. In my opinion, I think that the 5090 leak is correct, and I think the rest of these, the 5080, the 5070 Ti, and the 5070 are false. I don't think these are accurate yet. I'm guessing some things are probably correct, such as the power consumption here, but I'm guessing that a lot of these numbers are kind of filled in. I am concerned about the 5080 as all of the boxes are filled in. None of the boxes are kind of filled in over here with the 5070, and that makes me really concerned for the 5080. For those of you listening, the 5080 is only said to release with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Despite it being GDDR7 instead of the current GDR6X or whatever, this just does not work. It is 2025, and 16 gigabytes of VRAM is almost the same that the PS5 Pro or Xbox has, so how are you paying, $900 for a 5080 and getting worse performance than an Xbox or PlayStation? Makes no sense to me, especially that card is supposed to be a 4K gaming card, and you're telling me a 4K gaming card is 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Personally, I have a 4070 and I play at 1440p with ray tracing, and it's using almost all of my VRAM. In fact, I'm getting VRAM issues constantly in a lot of newer games on a 4070, which is absurd, and that has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So how are you going to run a game at 4K at 16 gigabytes of VRAM? That doesn't make sense to me. I think that's completely inappropriate for a release. And I've said for a while now that PlayStation and Xbox, they almost have more VRAM than the PCs at this point, and that's completely unacceptable. It's always been the thing that PC technology has been ahead of the consoles because we can release new generations every year, and somehow we're releasing it every year, and we're like 5 years behind of them on VRAM, and VRAM is a very cheap component to put on the graphics cards, so it's kind of unacceptable on NVIDIA's end. I would really like to see 24 gigabytes of VRAM on that 5080. I'd really like to see a minimum of 16 on the 5070 and 5070 Ti. Maybe on the 5070 Ti we go for 20. I guess they've changed how the Ti stuff works, but regardless, I would like to see 20 on the 5070 in my honest opinion, because AMD is selling their lower end graphics cards with like 20 gigabytes of VRAM starting. So until AMD really ramps up the competition here, I think we might be stuck with things like this for a while, and the PC gaming is going to kind of get stuck. Now, Unreal Engine 5 is getting stronger, more demanding, more stuff to process, but if the graphics cards aren't doing that because there's no competition, there's going to be the potential of these game engines being so powerful and nobody's graphics cards can run it. So that's something that's super important. We need these graphics cards to be staying up to pace with everything. And unfortunately, call me biased, but as a PC gamer, I feel like if you're buying a 5060 or a 5070, it should always be knocking the Xbox and PlayStation out in performance every time. But unfortunately, right now, if you buy a 4060, that's not really the case. Sometimes you are going head to head with the PS5 Pro and you're not beating it, which is very frustrating. That is not how it should be on the PC side. We should be way ahead of the consoles. But whatever, I'll ramble all day about this. Let me know what you guys think about the leaks here in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Do you think these are accurate? Do you like what you're seeing? Do you hate what you're seeing? I can kind of guess a lot of your thoughts, but I don't know. So let's move on to Unreal Engine 5.5, which is super important actually. So highly recommend checking Unreal Sensei's channel out. I love him, watch all of his videos. So I'm going to cover just the highlights here of the new releases. I'm guessing you're going to be interested enough to check out this video after, so I'll put a link to it in the description. He kind of talks about they have huge optimizations for mega lighting, which has been a huge obstacle for optimization in the past. So when they're putting the lights in, it can be very unoptimized, and they finally figured out a way to fix it. I'll let you watch a video on that, but this helps the game look a lot better and runs a lot better. Also, as I just had pulled up here, is this. He was showing in the video here how now lights and shadows from TVs or other displays will show up. So as these displays change, you can see the unique lighting back here, which is very awesome. No game has really ever done that before. And I was just thinking, I'm a huge fan of the Cyberpunk series. Imagine Cyberpunk with this in this engine. And I do think they're going to try and make the next Cyberpunk in Unreal Engine, as they did say they're making The Witcher an Unreal Engine. So I could imagine what Cyberpunk would look like with this engine, with all of this stuff running. I mean, it would look absolutely insane. I mean, but could you imagine the next Cyberpunk being in this? It would be absolutely crazy. Another huge thing here is that it's going to use AI. So this guy in the video, he put in an audio sequence, and it's going to use AI to make the characters talk, which has been, I feel like that should have been the first thing we did with AI instead of everything else. Like, we should have had this technology years ago, but super cool. I mean, using AI to interpret how a human would speak in the games is super important, because some of these videos honestly look real to me with the way they're talking. And obviously, if you played a video game, you know that sometimes they really miss the mark on how the characters talk. So this is a huge upgrade. Now, the biggest thing with immersion is this new atmosphere system. The clouds, they redid the clouds, they redid the atmosphere system, so it has real lighting. So the sun actually is like a universe now, how our world operates. You know, it has a sun that goes around. I guess it didn't in the past, actually. So they have a system that's much closer to Red Dead Redemption 2's weather system, which, as you know, Rockstar Games has spent a lot of time making a very powerful weather system, is going to be the next competitor to that. You could imagine in a game like Witcher 4 or possibly The Elder Scrolls, having that weather system is super important in the immersion of that game, and having the correct lighting and skybox is the biggest factor behind all of that. So there's some other cool stuff like ray tracing optimization, so it runs a little better, but I'll leave the rest of that. If you guys are interested, check out his video. Unreal Sensei here makes videos about Unreal Engine updates. He really takes the update and compacts it in like a good 10-minute video, so highly recommend him. Link in the description. So next up we got here is this NVIDIA app, actually. So this is actually new news. They got rid of GeForce Experience and replaced it with the NVIDIA app, as it's called here. I'm not sure what is honestly too different about it, in my honest opinion. I just feel like they never updated GeForce Experience after they released it, and they just got rid of it and released this. This kind of just looks like GeForce Experience, but they say there's some new stuff. It's nice you don't have to sign in anymore. At least not yet. But in my opinion, it has worked better. In my opinion, it has worked a lot better. GeForce Experience had a lot of crashes and everything with it, and this has actually worked a lot better, in my opinion, than the last one. So I guess they said they have a lot of plans on what they want to do with this in the future. I'm not going to talk about all that yet. I'll just kind of see if they do it, and then we'll talk about it if they do it, because there was a lot promised with GeForce Experience 2, and then it kind of got forgot about. So anyways, they have a lot of plans with this one. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. Last but not least, AMD released a huge new CPU, the 9800X 3D, and I would just let this video play itself. I mean, this is just hilarious. This is just hilarious, honestly. It's really the truth. I mean, and this is just the 7800. This isn't even the 9800. Watch, it's going to turn into the 9800 here, and it's even stronger. And I mean, it's just, you know, when I started PC gaming, AMD was a joke of a CPU to buy. I mean, you would buy that if you were just completely on a strict, like, $50 budget for a computer. And nowadays, it's crazy to think that AMD just has such an upper hand on Intel. Really hope that Intel pulls through here, but whatever. I digress. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for coming into this first episode of the VekTech Podcast with the gaming news. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like on the video and let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on the stuff, that new Unreal Engine update, the new AMD CPU, and most importantly, these NVIDIA leaks, because they really don't look good. If you want more gaming news updates and PC gaming videos, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you part of our team. I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers right now as my first goal, and I'd really appreciate it if you help me get there. Otherwise, take care.